Okay, I guess we are live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second session of our CEO CTO series under the Project Enterprise 2021 for APU. As usual, we have our moderator this afternoon, Dash, who's also our entrepreneurship or entrepreneur in residence, and he will take this forward together with our guest today. We have a wonderful, very senior leader in the industry from Cradle Fund, and Puan Rafiza is here to share her thoughts, her experience with us as part of the series this afternoon. Everything within Project Enterprise has been very successful to date, in terms of the events and activities, and I want to thank Dash as the EIR and the enterprise project team. There are a bunch of academicians who have worked together in putting these events together. We're a bit late this afternoon due to technical flaws, but nevertheless, we are live and we are kickstarting today's session on a positive note. So over to you, Dash, to welcome Puan Rafiza.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for such encouraging words. Hello, everyone, to all the participants. My name is Dash. As Prof said, I'm the entrepreneur in residence at APU and Asia Pacific University. We've got this enterprise project. Enterprise project is to basically, the idea is to embed entrepreneurial mindset in students. Some of them will go and do startups. Some of them will become, will go and look for a job. But whatever you do, the entrepreneurial mindset is very, very crucial, especially during these uncertain times. And part of the enterprise project, we are inviting industry leaders to come and give us their insights of what they think startups should do, students should do. They talk about the organizations they lead. And today we are fortunate to have one, Miss Rafiza Ghazali. I will address you as Rafiza, yeah? Rafiza,
yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, please, Dash, yeah.
Yeah, so Rafiza has been appointed Cradle Fund Group CEO in June 2020. She brings with her huge, vast experience, a lot of experience, 26 or more, about 3 decades. She's very young, but huge experience. She used to be with various, oil and gas, and even she started off with Arthur Andersen, I think, in Australia. A graduate and alumni of both the prestigious London School of Economics and the side business school at Oxford. So I would like to, and Rafiza, the most important thing for everyone to know is very easily, is very approachable. You can speak to her and she's very down to earth, very responsive. And, you don't have any airs about her, someone who really, really fits into the startup ecosystem. But when she first came, our one and dear Karamji wrote an article to say, why Rafiza, and she doesn't have startup experience, whatever. But how I saw it is that she brings with her range, group of a large experience where she could jump in and look at the ecosystem with a fresh eye. And I think she's moved the needle and very impressive. And over to you, Rafiza. A very good afternoon, and thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Dash. You're so kind to me as always, and not just to me, to a lot of people. Hi, everyone. It's such an honor for me to be here today. It has been, so I got appointed in Cradle back in June. It has been, 5th gear all the way to here because I joined right in the middle of pandemic, and that's where and one of the reasons why I took this job is because I really feel very passionate with startups. Even though I'm new to the startup ecosystem, when I first took over Cradle, I've known startups ever since the word startup was coined, many years ago. I'm always surrounded by startup founders, so to me it is such an honor for me to take on this job. So I'm not going to talk much about me. The whole purpose why we're here today is got nothing to do with me, but it's more about Cradle and more about the audience, because and the reason why when Dash connected to me, could you give a talk? I immediately say yes, and I made sure that my calendar is free because I feel very, very strongly about, talking to students or, whether they are young or experienced students, because, unlike during my time where if you go to university, your choice is either you become a lawyer, accountant, engineer, doctor, and, etc., etc. But nowadays, everyone wants to start a startup. It's the sexy thing, no one wants to be a lawyer. No one wants to be an accountant. Forget about them, everyone wants to start a startup. And I get a lot of questions because, my daughter studies at university, and I get a lot of questions, like, hey, like, what do I need to do in 4 years time, in 5 years time once I graduate, or even, could I start, what do I do now to prepare myself, to be in the startup ecosystem? So that's the reason why, I have been looking forward to this. I spent, quite late last night trying to prepare for this, and I've got a couple of slides. But I think, and I was talking to Dash, the reason why I wanted to share a number of slides, I didn't want this to be a lecture. I want this to be a very open, flexible conversations,
Yes.
And allow for a lot of questions and answers. But just give me, a few moments for me just to share what Cradle is about. Then at least you guys know, oh, okay, some of you who may not know what Cradle is and what we do. And in the time comes when you guys need funding, you know where it is and you know who to connect to. So allow me to just share a number of slides, very, 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 very high level. And then, of course, and then after that, then we have a more sort of general conversation about the startup ecosystem, our observation. Dash, you have a vast wealth on the ecosystem. He is the guru of the startup ecosystem.
That's a lot. That's a huge claim.
like, he's one of the first person that I got in touch with when I got this job. It's like, Dash, I need to learn, I need to someone to help me out, so he's the person to go to. Anyway, I'll start the screen sharing. Yeah,
sure. Rafiza, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sure. So you can see now.
Okay, I will leave the screen.
Thank you so much. Okay, Cradle. Everyone connects cradles to babies. So we are, the organization that accepts the birth of startups, so that's why we're called Cradle, and our tagline is creating leading startups. Okay. Just to give you a little bit of a background, Cradle has been around since 2003. So we are one of the agency under the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. So the minister is Yang Berbahagia Kari Jamaluddin. And our mandate is to find potential and high caliber tech startups, so that the key word here is tech. And what we do is we provide funding in the form of grant. Now, everyone here grants, all the eyes lit up, So as you can see, the journey from, 2003 all the way to now. So, sorry, we started off with, 50,000 grant, and these were provided to founders, anyone who think of ideas and they want to build a minimum viable product, then we provide the 50,000 grant. But that was back way in 2003. And then along the years, then you see our funding program started to increase from 150,000, and then in 2009 we have CIP 500,000 commercialization. The reason why I wanted to share this is I wanted to share the journey from 2003 all the way to 2020, and I would like to later share with everyone our latest products and why it has increased from 50,000 to 500,000 and 2 million, Okay. So for those of you who probably new to the startup ecosystem. So when we define startups, we define them by stage. So I'm sure you've heard of this, some of this, and I'll just want to show with you the slides. We have a number of what we call it sister agency. They are all under mostly that provide funds. So we have Cradle. So because one of the questions that I always get, what's the difference between you and Cradle and MAFCAP and TDC and Modal Perdana? So this shows, the sort of area which these agencies focus. So for Cradle, we very much focus on pre-seed and seed level, and then we have what we call it MPDC, MAFCAP, and Modal Perdana. So Cradle and MPDC provide funding through grants, MAFCAP through equity, Modal Perdana through equity, and Malaysian Debt Ventures provide funding through their debt venture financing. Yeah. So these are from 2003. Cradle has funded close to 1,000 startups. These are a very, very, very handful of startups. As you all know, Grab. So we provide them 2 grants. One is CIP 150, and the other one is CIP 300, and then so on, so on. So and there are a lot more other startups that we funded, but we just wouldn't have enough space to put all of their logos in, so we just pick and choose a couple, which I'm sure some of you have come across with or have probably used their services. So these are just other handful. Yeah. Now, when a lot of people say startups, what is a startup? How do you define a startup? So under the Ministry of Science Technology, we define startup as a technology or innovation enabled business at early stage with scalable business model and a high growth strategy. So the key word is it has to be scalable. So the business that you think of, or the product or services that you can think of, can't just can only be made available or in your locality. So i.e. it can't be used anywhere else. And the second thing that we look at is it has to have a high growth strategy. So when we evaluate those startups that come to us for funding, so these are it has to be a technology, and it's got to be innovative. It cannot be something which anyone else can do very, very easily. So it's got to be different, and at the early stage. So it's not something where you've already become a public listed company. So it's got to be very, very early stage. So normally the type of startups that come to us, they only have like maybe 5 people in their team, at most 10 or 12. A lot of them, they're very, very small. They're just starting something, and then they came to us with an innovative technology that they develop themselves. So it can't be something that you buy from somewhere else or you're under license. So that technology must be developed in-house, or at least by someone that you have or control ownership of, and it's got to be scalable. So those are the type of companies that how we define startups. Yeah. So I showed you. So currently we have 2 plus 1, I call it. One is Accelerate, and one is Ignite 1 and Ignite 2. And I'll tell you the difference between these. So we look for startups that are in deep tech for Accelerate and Ignite 1. So as you can see on the left side here. And then for non-deep tech startups, then we have an offering called Ignite 2. And these are the size of grants. So for Accelerate, the grant is up to 2 million, and for Ignite 1 and Ignite 2, the grant is up to 500,000. So if you guys happen to have got something that you guys want for us to look at, you can submit your applications, and we've provided the link if you want to submit applications. Now, what do we call funding period? So if let's say you come to us and we've approved for you to get the grant, we don't give you the 2 million immediately, So the funding, we have what we call it the milestones. So it's a pre-agreed milestone. So some of the milestones, I'll give you an example, maybe number of revenue that you have to reach, or number of subscriptions, or technology milestones. So it's something that once it's approved, we will pre-agree with you, okay, these are the milestones. Now, subject to you achieving the milestones, then only we disperse the fund. And that's why we have the fund, what we call it, the funding period between 16 to 24 months. So we don't give you the money upfront. It's reimbursable. So, i.e., you will have to provide us with documents. If, for example, you buy a certain hardware, for you to further develop your technology, then you either, you've done the purchase, then you reimbursed to us. Now, we've got a very, like, ever since I came in, I put a very, very strict KPI to my disbursement team. So the minute you submit all the document and make sure that, they're not fraudulent, and my staff will check and their bona fide documents, everything with us, we will pay you within between 7 to 10 working days. Because we know that a lot of the startups, they may not necessarily have cash flow, so we will try to pay. So the KPI maximum 14 working days, but most of the time so far our team have been able to disperse the money within 7 to 10 working days. And so I've explained Accelerate, Ignite 1, Ignite 2, and a lot of people ask me as well. So, if I put in my application, how long will I know? Okay, now you put in an application, so it's applied through our, what we call it, grant management system. So everything is online. You don't have to come to our office and submit documents. Everything is submitted online. Now, we will tell you within 3 working days whether you meet all the eligibility criteria. Okay, once you meet the eligibility criteria, then you'll be allowed to make a booking of what we call it, the pitching sessions, and we'll give you a calendar. You can select, everything in there. You can see, you want to see, for example, there's a slot available next week, so you can pick up, a time and a day to do your pitching. Yeah. So now a lot of people also ask me, what do you mean by deep tech? What is deep tech? If you ask 7 people their definition of deep tech, you'll get 10 explanations. Okay, so we have provided this on our website, what we mean by deep tech, and some, even if they're not sure what they can do, they can just submit, and we can explain to them what we need some more or furthermore for you to qualify as a deep tech. But don't worry, because like I said, we have 2 types, right, earlier. So we have non-deep tech, which is Ignite 2. So even if you submit and then suddenly it's not, it is, we don't consider it as a deep tech. What we can do, oh, by the way, this is still not a deep tech yet. Why don't you apply our Ignite 2? Then at least you still have a chance. So we look at what are the technologies that you offer. Is it something different? Is it either, is it engineering related, mathematics, physics, or medicine? Is it what do you call it? Does it have an intellectual property criteria, capability? So those are some of the things that we look at. If you ask me to give a definite set to say that which are deep tech and not deep tech, it's not as easy as it is, because sometimes you need to understand what is it that you're working towards. So your product might not be now deep tech yet, but the reason why you want this grant is that you want to, you want to turn it into a deep tech, for a simple explanation as that, yeah. So when you apply, it may not yet be deep tech, but the plan is for you to develop a deep tech technology, So then what we have, we call it technology readiness level. So earlier we said that, okay, what are the level that we accept that you can apply? So for example, Ignite 2, the TRL, what we call it, technology readiness level, is between 5 to 7. So i.e., it has validated in real environment, you have demonstrated in real environment, and you're just demonstrating the prototype, So for Ignite 2 and Accelerate is slightly more advanced, but like I said, at any point in time you're not sure, just come, just give us a call, and then we can make some sort of an evaluation where you fit within this technology readiness level. Yeah, but everything is on our website, so I'm just going to go through very quickly. Now, eligibility, it has to be a SIN number hat. Now, a lot of the times people are asking, why does it have to be a SIN number hat? It's because this is a conditional grant. So say, for example, for some reason or another, halfway through, you're not able to complete the program that is being terminated or whatever, then there is some sort of agreement. So it's very difficult for us to sort of have an agreement between the individuals. So that's one of the reasons why we want the applicant to be a SIN number company. It has to be accumulated revenue of not more than 5 million. Like I said, it has to be at the early stage startup. Once you've made more than 5 million, you're not eligible anymore. I.e. that the company is actually not a subsidiary of another company, because we feel that, this is government money. We want to give chance to those, who have no access to, for example, company shareholding. Because if once you have a company shareholding, then, the whole idea is that the company should fund you, Minimum payout of capital of 10,000 ringgit, 51% Malaysian owned. So i.e. we do allow for foreign shareholding, a minimum of 2 directors, and at least 1 must be Malaysian. And again, like I said, the technology must be yours. You may not have registered IP, but you have the capability to make changes to the technology, and you actually own the technology. So that's very, very important. I have here a list. I'm not going to go through in detail. There are some things that we, like for example, you may want to apply to 2 million, and then we look at the expenses that you apply for. We may say that, okay, these are allowable, or these are non-allowable, and we will let you know. So just because you want to apply 2 million, we may at the end of the day say that, okay, out of that, only 60% that it's allowed to be used under this grant. But in all the cases that I've seen so far, everyone made almost, all the, for either 500,000 or 2 million that they asked for. So I think this one not a problem, and these are, allowable expenses for Accelerate. What other do? We don't just provide funding. So we have quite a big team at Cradle. We work very closely with the startups, especially during the funding period, the one that I said between 16 to 18 months. We work very closely. During the pandemic, we provide a lot of support. We work with the startups to perhaps delay their milestones or to amend their milestones, because some of the startups, because of the MCO, were not able to reach, say for example, the subscription that we originally agreed. So we work very closely. We understand what are the issues, and as much as possible, we try to assist, because at that time, this time last year or even earlier, the government provided a lot of assistance. So, we blast out emails, we help, the startups, especially those that were struggling, for them to overcome the pandemic. So this is what I feel that, I say I can be proud of, at Cradle, that we're not like some other, organization which I shall not name. All they do is they give money. If you don't pay, we'll go after you. No, we will work very closely with you, because, for us, it's just like a mother, during baby, right? You nurture the startup. So these are some of the things that I can really be proud of Cradle, even though I was not there, at that time. But this is, our contribution to the startups ecosystem. This is a program that we have. It's called Coach and Go program. And we have had this for over 7 years. So this is a program that we provide to not just our funding, startups. So these are any startups, even though it's not funded by us, can participate in this program. So it's a lot of I would say it's like the MBA of startups, I would call it. We assign coaches, and we'll sit down with, the startups and help them with, either cash flow management, how to run a company, how to do pitching, how to get funding. We even help, the startups to meet with the, investment community. So it has been, something that, we can really be proud of, because as I can say, through this program, more than 1,657 entrepreneurs went through this coaching, and we've got 104 coaches that got involved in this, etc., etc. So 5,137 hours, and look at the revenues generated by the CGP entrepreneurs, over 2 billion. So, and this is one of the things. And the best thing is, the startups that participate in this, they don't have to pay a single cent. All they need to do is just to attend the courses or the workshops, or meet with their coaches. They don't have to pay a single cent. So this is completely paid by the government through Cradle. Yep. Another thing that we do is, as you know, at the early stage startups, so the startups, they either get funding through government, because they can't go to the banks, because the banks need all sorts of documents, all sorts of track records, all sorts of financials. So most of the startups, they don't have this. So they are not what we call it bankable. So where do they go to? So they either come through us, but obviously not everyone can be eligible through Cradle funding. Not many investors invest, but what they do is they have what we call it the angels. So these are individual investors, who take a little bit of a risk, but obviously, potentially high rewards. And we want to, the reason why Cradle do this program is because we want to provide more funding pool to the early stage startups. Now, what we do is that, the government provided a tax incentive for individual angels to invest in accredited startup companies, which this is what Cradle will do. So Cradle will identify, so these are the startups that you can invest. And then an organization called Malaysian Business Angel Network, MBAN, they will work with the angels to help them to get this tax incentive. So the tax incentive is that it can be up to 500,000 per annum, but the investment must be held for 2 years. Yeah. If you need any more explanation on this, please go to our website. And what MBAN does as well, they will have what they call it the pitching session. So some of the startups, can pitch, and it's normally done on a Friday afternoon. If you want to participate, if you want to get angel investors, so they can arrange for a pool of angel investors to listen to the pitches that's done by the by the startups. So to date, we have 326 number of accredited angels. There has been 18 number of investee and 18 number of investment deals up as at today. Yeah. So Malaysian Grand Challenge, I just want to quickly go through. It's a 220 million fund that is managed under the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. The reason why we shared this is because there could be some of the applicants that come to us that may not be, that may not meet the criteria. What we can do, we can help the, some of the applicants, especially, the really good ones, for them, to perhaps assist them to apply through any of these funds. So if you're a startup as well, the startups, as you can see, applications open to startup companies. We help the ministry to provide awareness as well to a lot of people, because not many people are aware of this. And this is something that we support the ministry on this. So I just want to share with you, these are what's available. And if you want to have any more information, you can go into their website at edana@mosi.gov.my. National Technology and Innovation Sandbox. Some of you may know, as some of you know, MAGIC, the Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Center, is also another agency under the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, which is in the ecosystem. And so what happens is that some of the startups, when they come up with a technology, and the technology or the service or the products may not work within the current regulatory environment. So this is where if you feel that there needs to be some regulatory adaptation to your technology so that technology could be adopted, and this is where we can help to assist. So I'm just giving an example, like drones. As you know, drones, there's a lot of regulatory that a lot of the drone providers face. So Magic through through Sandbox will then get all the regulatory players in that technology and the technology providers to work within what we call it the best situation as far as possible in the real world, and to see whether if there's any regulations that can be amended or adapted to allow for the technology to be further developed. So this is under Sandbox, and Cradle as a partner to this. We also, so some of our funding, our grantees, they have access to Green Lane. So the application and the what they call it, the application to NTIS is a lot easier compared to if you're not a Cradle grant recipient. Yeah. Last but not least, we have the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation came up with what they call it Dasar Science, Technology dan Inovatif Negara. And in there, if you guys are in the science and technology arena, I would strongly assist you to go into this website and look at the roadmap, because these are some of the technology that the government's really pushing. So, like example, big data analytics, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence. So these are some of the areas which, the government will definitely support and fund, so that people know, okay, these are, how the whole idea is to come up with this thing is that the government has put up a roadmap. They want Malaysia to be, instead of adopter of technology, but to be the producer and the developer of technology. So we want to be able to produce our own technology and rely less on foreign technology. Yeah, because this is where the money is. This is where investments, returns to to GDP. This is where it is, rather than we buy a lot of technology from overseas and then yeah. And it also developed the talent in Malaysia. So it produced a lot of scientists and a lot of what I call it the inventors, rather than just adopting and the players of technology. Okay, so this is part, my STIE is part of this thing. I'm not going to go through in detail. And again, we make sure as well that Cradle supports the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I think that's it. I hope this has been very useful. Dash?
Hi, Rafiza. That's a lot of information and very, very valuable information.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay. Yeah.
So I
now
think we will
do the fun bit.
Yeah, we'll do the fun bit. So there's very good set of slides. I just wanted to ask you. You said 1,000 startups have been funded, almost 1,000 from inception, right? What's the kind of numbers are there who are still on an ongoing basis? Do you follow them? And with the CGP program and all that, I see there's a lot of success there.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, like I said, the startups that are still going through our disbursement programs are the ones that we may have approved like over the last 2 years. So they're still what we call it under our disbursement program, because like I mentioned, we don't give upfront. it takes between 16 to 18 months, depending on how fast they develop their technology. Okay. Now, after that, we have what we call it the monitoring period. So that is a further 2 months. So this is where we want to make sure that, okay, the startups are still around, that they're still within our community. And this is something, it's just like, if your child is just started to walk, right? You still want to stay behind and make sure that the startups don't fall over or the baby don't fall over. We're still there. So that's
we are like Asian parents. We are always helicopter. We are helicopter parents.
Yeah.
So,
and until they can walk, so what we call it, they are still under our monitoring system, because it's also another way for us to make an assessment whether did our program work, what didn't work, that sort of thing. So it's also allow us to make what we call it the post disbursement assessment. So that's another 2 years now. Up to now, the startups that are within our radar disbursement plus monitoring, it's roughly about 365 startups. That's just on the funding program. Now, with respect to the CGP, there's about 130 startups that are still currently going through the CGP that is about to graduate. So roughly between 300 startups. Yeah.
Okay. So are we saying about 40% of them are surviving, and then the rest may have pivoted or closed
some of them have been acquired, as you all know. We've got one startup. Aaron Summer acquired by Asia. Some of them, just because they're not around, that doesn't mean they fail, because there are startups that have been acquired, or the technology have been sold off too, so the founders make a lot of money. Why should I run this startup? I want to retire. So just because they're not around, that doesn't mean that they fail. Some of them have merged, some of them have been acquired by there are a couple of people out there who are acquiring 30% stakes. You and I know who they are. So they may not have the name of the company yet.
No, but even if they fail, failure is part of the startup anyway. So it's not a big thing.
Yeah, because we have a lot of the founding members. And like I said, fail fast, fail cheap. So they may have we may have funded them, and then it didn't work out, which is fine. If say for example, okay, if they reach that milestones up until the completion period, okay, we don't ask them to pay us back. So they may have failed, and then they may have think about something else. I've seen some startup founders do that. They come to us again, and we're they're not going to be what they call it. We're not going to penalize them, because we know things have changed, and so we do have founders who didn't work out, and then they become co-founder. They learn their lessons. So the whole idea is that how can they not repeat the mistakes? How can they learn from them?
Absolutely. I mean, in the developing countries, there's a lot of risk capital available, and in developed markets, in developing countries, government should take the risk capital, and the grant is one of them. And our very dear friend Liliana has a question for you. I said NPCS target to create 5,000 startups. How do you respond to that?
Okay,
has to come from some of our close friends in the ecosystem.
Okay, from my understanding, it's not creation of new startups, 5,000 startups. So, i.e., what is the number of startups over the next 5 years? Now, there's a lot of different, what do you call it, documentation. Some have said, we have already, 4,000 startups. So to have another to have up to 5,000 startups is no big deal. But there's also some others like, okay, currently the startups that we know of, only a certain number, is that achievable and things like that. Now, when the target of 5,000 first came, so yes, we know Cradle, we need to support. Then what we did was the Ministry of Science Technology, the KSU, look at all the numbers which all the agency has now, how many startups they have, and plus we discount about 20% because there could be some duplication. So to get that 5,000 startups, it's not unattainable, because when we collective look at all the number of startups, it's just now a matter of getting all of that onto one system. That's one of the things I think that we're trying to do. So the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation has come up, and this is why they created eDana. So part of that eDana is also going to have big data analytics, and so we have been, Cradle, MathCap, MDV, we have all been providing the data of our startups, and that's what the ministry is trying to look at, so that again, then we can see, then each of us were given a targets of how many startups. So it's not just the number of startups that we funded, but the number of startups that we help. For example, like CGP, My Hackathon, there's a number of startups that we touch. We may only have 36 winners, but there's a lot of startups that we touch. So those are the kind of things that we look at too. Okay, Lily?
So don't you think, what are your views on Malaysian success rate? How does our ecosystem? Of course, okay, I've got a lot to say here, but I'll let you say.
Yeah, okay, like we said, failing could be considered a startup success as well, because there has been instances, and I shared this is my personal experience when I was at SIMW. So we created corporate, what we call it, internal startups, and there were startups that we kill because rather than put in more money, we pivoted or we killed the startup. So just because the startups are not are not around, it doesn't mean,
it doesn't mean,
yeah, do you know what I mean? Because killing is also one of the criteria for it to be success as well.
Exactly.
So how does our ecosystem compare? It's very different. There's no way you can compare. We have studied Silicon Valley, we have studied Singapore, we have studied Tel Aviv, we have studied Korea. Everyone has got their own niche. And in fact, when we came up with the startup ecosystem, we look at all the various models. So it's not something that you can take one and you can fit into the ecosystem, because Silicon Valley have got all the large corporates that have their R&D over there. They've got a lot of universities around that area that has got a lot of funding as well. They're very rich than some of the countries that we have, so it's very different. And also because they have a big population, so you can almost you can sell lemon and you can make money in the US, provided that you know how to market the lemon. In Malaysia, it's because it's, we have our own niche as well. So I think it's very difficult. I don't know about you, Dash. I don't think we should compare to Silicon Valley. I would think that, I would think that ours would probably be a little bit more, I don't know, there's no benchmark. Even Berlin is considered, a startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, but Berlin is different because, it has got a lot of young population. It is what you call it, a university town, and London has got a lot of big international companies over there. So I think we have our own niche speciality. How about you, Dash? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right. We cannot compare. Basically, what happens is, in a developed market, the entrepreneur basically has to identify a problem and solve a problem, and that's all they have to focus on. Whereas in a developing market, there is a lot of gaps in the market. The entrepreneur not only have to solve a problem, but also have to create conditions that will enable him to solve the problem. When Gojek started, it's not like Uber starting where the guy just have to start and then it just grows. He has to educate the market. He has to make the population bankable. So there's a lot of other things that entrepreneurs in developing markets have to do. So that's one thing. And failure is accepted as a norm in Silicon Valley and in all these advanced market, whereas in Asia and all, we are just learning that failure is not a bad thing after all. We are not going to, make failure or punish someone they have failed. And the other thing is that we look at the venture performance all the time. The venture doesn't succeed is equal to entrepreneur not successful. However, a great entrepreneur will have many failures before he creates a great startup. So what we really need to do is to get large number of people into the ecosystem for us to get for the cream to rise. So I've always believed that everyone needs to become entrepreneurial. Everyone needs to become startup junkies. And then the ecosystem will rise. So when I do a lot of my programs, there's always a criticism about how many startups have you done or created. But that's not the thing. You've got to get a lot more people in the game. A lot more people need to learn how to cook for us to have a great number of chefs coming out of our ecosystem. So that's what I think it is. So for 5,000 startups to come, you got to get a lot of university students becoming testing and failing in their university, so that when they go to the real market, they become successful. I think that's how you create a great, vibrant ecosystem. Thanks for the question. Please tell us about the conditions of granting. Oh, that's a great. Damon.
Hi, Rafiza. Please tell us about the conditions of granting the Cradle CIP funds that cannot be found on the website. What do you, okay, like I said, if you look at the surface, you have met all the eligibility criteria. Okay, then it comes to pitching, it comes to a number of what we call it the approval process. Now, I sit on the approving committee, and one of the things that I always ask and I always look for, does the startup have the right management team? Because on the PowerPoint slides, the technology may look great, may look fantastic, but what we have seen that some of the startups, even with the money, even with very smart people, the reason why they cannot complete the program is that there are a number of things, disagreement between the co-founders. That's one of the main things. We've seen husband and wife team, and then suddenly they went through divorce. So who owns the IP? They have a fight over the IP, okay? That sort of things. You come up with this product, and we always ask, where are you going to get the source? Does the source is from Malaysia, or the source comes from some other countries? What if suddenly the government, stops exporting their countries? How do you have plan B? Do you have plan C? So these are, and like, for example, does this technology, do you need people to implement that? So i.e., for example, if you want to market that to Singapore, you have to physically send people to be there, or can you do it via the web or something like that? So these are the hardware. How long? So for example, so we have someone come with a very interesting engineering technology, but it requires 6 months to do that. Now, if you want to produce 10, then it's fine. So you produce, you want to subscribe. But what if you said there's a demand, there's a 1,000 demand for it? Do you have a mechanism to make sure that you can produce 1,000 of that, within the next 3 months, or are you going to take 5 years to do that? So there's some things. I've come across someone who came out with a drone that can how to say that have a very strong weight capability, and then I said, okay, roughly how much does it cost to do this versus, what about a competitive? I'm not just saying examples of some of the things that I question at the CIP, but because I also sit on other approving committee of some of the other grants at MOSTI and also at the Sandbox. So these are some of the things, like, okay, you're going to take 6 months to develop this particular engineering product. is it cheaper than your closest competitor? So why do you think someone would pay yours, which costs $200 when someone has already come up that only costs $100? You know, that sort of thing. So yeah, does that explain?
So
Dash, does that make sense?
yeah. Thanks. That's a great question, Devon. Very good question. Yeah. So, there's a lot of questions to ask, but we can keep on going back to the past and asking all these other questions, right? But, looking at the pandemic, looking at the uncertainty that's looming in front, Rafiza, what is your advice to the young people out there who wants to go and venture out, who wants to do a startup and all that? What
Okay.
is your,
My advice to you. So one of the things that we are working on at the moment, we're partnering with a lot of universities. So some universities do their own research and development, and then one of the things that we're trying to do is if we can partner the research and development team with an existing startups, because the research and development at university, they've got fantastic capability to do product development, product innovation, but they may not necessarily have the capacity, or they may not have what they call it, the motivation to make money out of it, them being an academic. Now then you have a group of people at the other spectrums, startups. The reason why they are startups is because they want to make money. Everything they see has got a dollar value to it, right? So how could we partner, how could we marry these two people? So these are some of the things that we're looking on. We're arranging with some universities where the students do internship at the startups, and then at least it gives you the kind of flavor. So this is how, because working in a startup is very different working in a corporate, or definitely working in a government, because you're expected to be agile, you're expected to do everything. So I give an example. One of how I came about this idea, my daughter, who is now in the first year university, she has done internship with 3 startups. So she probably know about startups more than I do, because and she told me, like, they'll be telling us to do something, and it's got to be done within the next 24 hours or whatever. And they even asked her to continue when she went over to St. Andrews. They even asked her to continue for her to intern with them. So these are some of, and if at least as a student you've done internship with the startups, then it gives you some sort of exposure. Okay, this is how a startup looks like, because it's not just about being smart or being intelligent that you have to be a startups. There's a lot of what I call it qualitative avenue to make a startup successful. A lot of it comes to personality, resiliency, the ability to the things that you have planned to do suddenly change, the ability to identify that very quickly, the ability for you to connect and to see opportunity when you're out there, when you're trying to validate your product. You think that you have the best offering, but then suddenly you ask someone, like, they said, would you like to pay this? No, I'm not. So and I see a lot of humility as well in a startup founder, that they admit that their product need enhancement, need work on. That's very important as well. And those are the things that you're not going to find from reading a textbook. But if you work with a startup, you shadow a startup founder, he or she will definitely share with you some of the things that that keep them motivated, that the ones that pulls them down, how to manage difficult stuff, that sort of thing. So those are the things that you can only learn from being there. No matter how much Netflix that you watch, you can only feel it until you're actually there, in the crux of things. Yeah.
So you're saying they need to get their hands dirty. There's another beautiful question by Lily. I think you should. This is something that I was also very curious about. Becoming Cradle CEO in the midst of pandemic, you've learned fast. What's some of the lessons? What are the challenges? Some of the lessons and advice for first-time CEOs.
Okay. Like I said, when up until now, I still have not met physically in person all my staff. I
God.
deal with them, 99% through computers. I think to me that was the biggest challenge of all, the fact that I've not been able to have a face-to-face, like for example, when, they need to be motivated. How do you motivate a person, through computer, And, compared to say, for example, last time when I was at other places, if I have, staff that were feeling down, hey, come, let's have a coffee, let's have a chat. What's wrong with you? There's nothing compared to having a brainstorming session with a whiteboard and a couple of markers, and compared to, sometimes I have to scribble on a pen or paper and I show, okay, this is how it looks like, that was the biggest challenge of all, and the inability for me to have that, I would call it personal engagement with my staff, and how can they trust, their CEO, their bosses, if they've not had the opportunity to be, to be in person, and just watch her through computers, so that's my, I would say my biggest challenge of being a CEO, especially during the pandemic. And I'm a first time CEO, and the lessons and advice of first time CEO is, to me, I think, patience. No one can underestimate the virtue of patience. You need to be empathy, you need to understand where they're coming from. There are things which you sometimes, because I'm used to having things fast, but there are reasons why sometimes it's not in your way. Patience, really understand, really take time. And also you need to really learn how to get the buy-in from the people, because you can never be CEO alone. You can never move the needle alone. You need an ants behind you to move the needle. And that's, to me, is my advice for a first time CEO. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I hope I answered that question. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of advice, but for me, one of the things which really that when I look at the last 1 year, I think I am where I am is because of my staff, is that I'm surprised at myself at that that I could do that. Yeah, thanks.
No, it's really something to think about for many CEOs, actually, to build trust across screens, right? I've actually never thought of it that way, because most of my team has been there before. But maybe I should give your team a tip. They should go to where you shop for groceries and walk with you around the grocery aisle, and then they may be able to connect better. So potential in the long term.
Okay.
Raymond saw. How do you see? How do you see which startups have the potential
in the long term? Yeah.
Okay. Which might fail, and any startups failed after receiving grants. Yeah.
Okay.
Over to you.
All right. Okay. The startups that I see is that they are very clear on their, I wouldn't call it end games. They're very clear on where they want to be. Now, how they do it, they have the flexibility. So like there are some startups that when they come across to me, I couldn't really see what they're trying to achieve, and then I was asking them, how do you think you're going to make money from this technology, for example? I can't name names or whatever. Then they say, we're not developing the technology, we're actually acquiring the data, and from the data, we will build a different offering. So sometimes, you may not necessarily see it, but a founder who have that sort of an end game that they vision, and they work towards that, they work towards the milestones, and they're very, very focused. They're not distracted. They're not distracted by short-term gains. I think those are one of the things that I see who have potential in the long term. Like no one anticipated the pandemic, right? And everyone was, investing monies, they are going for growth, they're putting a lot of money on branding, on media, on growth plans. They were doing a lot. Suddenly the pandemic hit them, and then they found that they have a very short, what we call it, the runway cash. So i.e. the number of months that you can survive without any revenue. We were surprised that a lot of them have less than 3 months. So if for 3 months they don't have revenue, they have to start firing people, and they're not able to stop, because they were really just focusing on growth plans without making sure that they have sufficient blanket to fall, anticipated, because no one anticipated. Everyone was like, well, we're gonna go get funding. We're very everyone wants to invest in us. Everyone's very, very bullish, and so that's what it hit them. So I think the ability for the startups, not to say to prepare themselves, but at least they have an idea. If this happens, this is what I can do, or at least surround themselves with people who they can talk with. Being in a community is very, very important. The startups that I've seen have got a group of people that they can always talk with, because that's one of the things that is very, very important. You can't work in isolation. You need to surround with people with different ideas who can challenge your business model, your product, your services. Make sure that it's watertight, and that it can withstand any earthquake along the way. It cannot be very fragile. So I think those are the things that I always see, like I'm very fixated with some of the with some of the startup founders, and these are some of the things that I see them doing. They're very resilient, they're very agile, and they can see opportunities which others may not be able to see. Some may think that, why are you doing this, it's a waste of time, but they're able to identify. I mean, like space traveling, Elon Musk, who thought that, who I bet you when he first came out with the idea, everyone think that he's crazy, but I mean, look at them now, and he's so persistent, he's so resilient. He didn't allow for all those crashes, to stop him. He continued and on and on and on. So yeah.
I think he nearly went bankrupt after that first three crashes.
Yes, he nearly went bankrupt, and if not for the Malaysian government, right? So that's the first rocket with our government. I don't know whether a lot of people realize that his first rocket has got a Malaysian flag. Right.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. We'll have another 10, 12 minutes. I mean, we have to wrap up, but I have a lot of questions, but you want to take this, let's take it as in a rapid fire fashion. Yeah. What are the expert knowledge? What expert knowledge should CEO acquire?
The expert knowledge is for you to continuously learn, as a CEO, and I see this, I am very grateful that I have a lot of really great CEOs that I model against, and what I notice about them is that they don't stop learning. They continuously acquire knowledge. So if you ask me what expert knowledge is, the passion and the interest to continuously acquire knowledge, because something that and you're expert with now may not be relevant next week.
Absolutely.
So you need to continuously learn, and the people that I really, really admire, they read a lot. Not just they read a lot, they discuss a lot. They are surrounded by like-minded people who are constantly thirsty for new knowledge. So learn new skills. I see some of the good CEOs, they learn skills which have got nothing to do with with the job. They learn photography, some, like my KSU, she even at 6 years old, she said she's taking coding lessons, part-time, that's amazing, for you to continuously learn something that you don't know of, So I think, that's what I can
No,
advise. How about
the,
you, Dash? What do you think?
no, I think so. I think the ability to learn, because the shelf life of whatever you have known past is very short, right? So
Yeah,
you
getting
can see
shorter
I'm
and shorter.
getting
Yeah,
shorter and shorter. So for me, it's about keeping a curious mind, learning, and the art of listening to people, art of listening to a
mm,
lot of people on the ground,
mm.
and which you do very well, Rafiza, as much as I can see. A
Thank
very
you.
few minutes of rapid fire questions. So what do you think the ecosystem needs moving forward?
Sorry,
Uh,
what is the?
discrimination, I just bet.
No,
Okay.
I think it's got to me. I'm not really a gender person. A lot of men CEOs get discriminated and get bad treatments as well. So it's more of you rather than being a woman. In fact, sometimes I get a lot of leeway. I get a lot of oh, okay, let's give her a chance. So yeah, sometimes I think it could be to advantage of being a woman. So
But
yeah,
I think currently, the way we are moving in Malaysia, I don't think you face that much of gender
no,
discrimination anyway. And you are good in what you do, and I think you have a lot of respect amongst people. So
yeah.
back to my question: what's very quickly, very fast? What do you think the ecosystem needs moving forward? What should be put in place? What should go?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. To me, I always believe on information made available.
Okay.
Information, clarity, so that people don't go around going for a fishing expedition to do something. It's
Mhm.
very distractive. Uh, Different agencies talking to each other. you know
Right.
People are not contradicting each other. I think it's the information where to go to, data that can help us. I
Yeah.
think those are some of the things. Opportunity, and I'm seeing the country really working towards that. I'm very happy to see that people are take proactive actions. Corporate are taking proactive actions. State agencies are taking proactive actions. I know all the various state development corporations are being a lot more vocal out there. Uh, you know, Providing programs. I think you need all of this, but it's just a matter making sure that the information is out there. It's very easy for people to maybe the also the yeah it's just to me it's that that's the
Yeah.
feedback that I get a lot of the times. Like, a lot of them, they don't know where to go to, how to
Yeah.
go to, searching for information, searching for the various partners. Yeah, I think if we can have that right, then it makes a lot of people work a lot easier.
Oh, that really makes a lot of sense. Readily available information and all the other agencies coming together and working
Updated,
closely together.
updated a
Updated,
lot of the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
You
I think we need
call
that, yeah.
someone, no one picks up the phone today.
Yeah,
I call Cellcom because something wrong. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't mention names, but I call 5 numbers, no one picks up the phone. Things like that.
yeah, yeah. Actually, I wish I can have a 2-hour podcast with you, but very quickly, another few personal questions. How, this is asked by Tim Ferriss, always asks this question: how has a failure or a apparent failure in the
Mm.
past few years has set you up for your current success? What is your
Sorry,
favorite failure? What has
my
been a
favorite.
failure of your favorite failure which has set you up for your current success?
For me, this is my second marriage. So
Okay.
my first marriage, I would call it a failure. And for me, communication, upfront communication, being honest, being transparent, to me is key. So one of the first few things that I did when I took up as a CEO, I showed everyone this is our KPI. It's the first time anyone have seen, the company's KPI. Transparent with that, have an open open. I can't have it an open door, policy.
Yeah.
But like, for example, I think a third of the people at the office have access to my calendar. And I told them, if there's a free time, you can make a booking. You can always get in touch with me, and share with them, the challenges that the company. So a very honest and open conversation, no hiding things with all the staff. So that they feel that they belong as well. So that's the thing that I learned. The mistakes is being open, being transparent, so that people, like I said, trust got to be earned. And that people see that you have no ulterior motive, and they feel a lot more comfortable dealing with you.
One thing that comes across consistently from what you said and what you have so openly shared about your marriage as well is the building of trust, building of communication, building of bridge across people. I think that's also something the ecosystem really, really needs. And I think that's the DNA of a successful ecosystem, trust. Tarun Khanna, the professor at Harvard, has written a book on developing countries' ecosystem, and he calls his book Trust. One last question before you go. I think you have endeared yourself with the audience with that kind of a message. One last question, Rafiza, before you go. If you had a billboard to scream across your message to everyone around who passes by, what would that message be?
Okay. If you want to do something very badly, just do it. Don't doubt yourself. It's a tough road journey, but I rather die of fail,
not trying,
but not try, but rather than not what do you call it? There's a term call it, but I did not try. So it's like
okay. You'd rather die doing something wrong than not trying at all. That's what are you trying to say that?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Amazing, fantastic. Thank you so much, Rafiza. We would like to really, really, really invite you and see Lily's very good reply.
Thank
so
you,
proud
Lily.
of you. Yeah, I think this is a very honest, straightforward kind of conversations. I wish we had more. We have only till 3:45. I would like to have a podcast series with you, and it's fantastic. Mira says, and thank you so much for being with us. And
thank you.
On behalf of APU, I would like to thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule. And all the
my
best
pleasure,
for you
my honor.
All the best to see you moving forward. And after the lockdown and whatever, we would like to invite you over to come to the APU campus.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
My honor. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Dash. Hope to see you soon. Yeah. You take care. Everyone take care and stay safe. Thank you. Bye. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye. So those of you who are attending and watching, if you want your attendance, please do your QR code. You know the drill. Do this till we see you again at the next CEO CTO series. All the best. Have a great afternoon and a great week ahead. And once again, Rafiza, thanks a lot. You rock. And you are indeed rocking.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Yeah.
Bye.